Hey guys, welcome to TheRiaya and a quick video on how to set up OBS properly on your system in case you want to do some hardware encoding due to the fact that your processor in general is lacking and you aren't able to do it via X264. Now I'm going to assume you have a basic knowledge on how to set it up on your streaming service, so we're going to get right into the settings and go from there. So under the settings, you go to output, and in general, when you set it up, it's very generic like this. You got your bitrate to set up for it, and then you've got the local recording. So if you have a generic setup for 1080p 60 fps, or if you don't have it set up, you're gonna have to go here, set the base resolution, which obviously is 1920 by 1080, and output resolution. Usually if you have this load up, as the default is going to be downscaling it to 1280 by 720, so you change that also to 1080p, and then the frame rate to 60. So first make sure that is done, and then go back to output. Again, as I stated, this is very generic as it's set to the simple mode. You got the software X264 and the audio bitrate at 160, or whatever your streaming server says it should be maximum at, and you should have it at. So in order to set this to hardware encoding, you could leave it on simple and you could just do it here. QSV is QuickSync video. Hardware, or AMD is obviously AMD, and if you have Intel or Nvidia is for Nvidia or NVENC. So we're going to be covering QuickSync video first, then we'll move on to Nvidia because it's pretty simple as well, followed by AMD because that one's a little more complex in how they got it generally set up. So first thing you're going to go to is output mode, and we're going to swap this over to advanced. Now you'll see here at the very top you have the audio track, and you have a number of audio tracks you can select. We'll go over audio tracks and things later. Right now we're focused on the hardware encoding. So if you're on, again, Intel processor that is not X199, no, X99, 199, or 299, which don't have built-in video graphics, then you should be able to use this. Even with a generic graphics card, if you go into the BIOS, into the advanced settings, under peripherals, and turn the iGPU multi-monitor on, you'll be able to use that in Windows 10 itself. Now in Windows 10 itself, you'll have to go to display settings, and so a lot of times it should be able to auto recognize it now with the newer Windows 10, but if not, you'll have to go in there and tell it to try to auto connect to an analog display regardless, and that will enable the QuickSync video itself. Now when you have this selected, you change the target usage quality, obviously for streaming, profile high, and key enter frames to 2 is usually used for streaming online. Async depth is to make sure that the audio and the video is kept in sync with each other. They had to introduce this after, I think it was on the Ivy Bridge processors and up, in order to keep everything in order. Sandy Bridge, I believe, worked perfectly fine, but Ivy Bridge and up had an issue, so they had to introduce this async depth. Rate control, you're going to leave at a CBR, constant bit rate, and you set it to the bit rate that the streaming service allows. Most is 3500, max at 1080p 60 frames per second, unless it's like YouTube, which allows, I believe, upwards towards 12 megabits per second for 60 fps gaming at 1080p. So that's pretty easy to set up. Now we'll move over to the Nvidia based graphics. Alright, on the Nvidia based graphics, it should look semi like this. So let's again set the bitrate to where it should be, keyframes to where it should be, and for streaming you're going to want to do high quality. Overall profile to high should work fine. Level you can set to auto, or you can set it to 5.1, either or. Now this allows you to have a 2-pass encoding for a higher quality while streaming. I suggest leaving that on. And the GPU lets you select more than one graphics card. So if you only have one graphics card, you just leave it at 0. If you need something else, set it to 1 would be the second card, 2 will be the third card, and so forth. And B frame should be set to 2. That covers setting it up for streaming on here. So back to Alright, we're back here, and now we're going to go over the AMD Advanced Media Framework, or their VCE, Video Coding Engine. For your streaming services, it's pretty easy to set up. You go to the preset, you set it to YouTube, leave it on balance, again, set the bitrate to what you need it to, and then fine, you know, you don't really have to do anything else. And that makes it all the simpler. Now, we're going to go into some more advanced things here, and that is going to be going with local recording, along with streaming at the same time. Now, my recommendations for this is you stream with the QuickSync. So you set up all the settings that I went over here, and then you're going to go over to recording and use your primary graphics card for this. I'll also go over again the audio track, but that will be done later. Now, you see we have it set to the AMD VCE here. Normally, yeah, just like say it here, it would not have really anything set up. You can select a preset for starters, which I would recommend. Which best English indistinguishable is really good. But we're going to tweak this a little bit. So you're going to click this, set that to no actually selected preset, leave that unbalanced. You want to change profile. Oh wait, usually this is set on basic, so you might not be seeing that. So if you go here, I go to indistinguishable, yeah, this is probably what you'll be seeing for the first time. Again, set it to no preset itself, and then change it to advanced. If you're going to be doing a local recording for editing and such, or a high quality recording that you can slap onto YouTube later, you're going to want to modify these couple things. Profile to baseline. This is very important for if you're going to be editing it, because high is meant for low bit rate, high quality, which puts extra strain on the system in general, especially when you're trying to edit and such, and might not be so smooth while editing. You want to set it to baseline so it's got none of those B frames. Profile level, you want to set to 5.1. Now, CQP, or a constant quality preset, at 15 is perfectly fine. That should be more than high enough for 1080p 60 FPS. It should record possibly over 100 megabits per second, but not going over it if you don't need to. Which will, of course, keep the quality a decent, really high quality, but it won't increase the file size, so it's an absolutely ridiculous amount. Keyframe intervals, you're also going to want to change this for actual editing. Set that to 1. Everything else you should be able to leave alone, and you should be able to just record them. Now note, I'm on an R9 280X, and I found out the current OBS settings and the current VCE hardware encoding, or software plugin for here, does not work on my graphics card. So if this doesn't work for you, I'm really sorry. You can always use QuickSync for local recording, and of course obviously do that for high quality recordings when not streaming. But that comes with possibly its own issues. We'll go over that too now, I guess, as well. So for QuickSync, you can just leave it at speed on here. Baseline again, keyframe intervals again to 1. Well, you're going to change CBR to CQP this time. And I'd say between 15 and 10. CQP on here for QuickSync I'd probably set to 10. It's not as high in quality as the NVENC or the AMD VCE. But then it should record really high quality again with the bit rate. Now, the reason why I stated that you might not want to use this is I don't know if it's fully fixed yet. It might be, but other times when I record it, at least on my 3770K, I would have to re-encode this again with like Media Coder or Handbrake before editing, due to it not being able to skip around properly in the files, and it would cause it to state that the file's offline or I can't find the file at all, and it would just cause that kind of a hassle. So if you can, use your AMD based graphics or your Nvidia based graphics instead, of course. Now for local high quality recording for Nvidia based graphics, there's some, again, changes as usual. Rate control. In general, I would suggest leaving it at CBR at up to 100 megabits per second. You could try CQP, but I've had mixed results with that. But if you are to set it as CQP again, usually set it around like 15 or so. But 100 megabits per second at 1080p 60 frames per second should be enough. Keyframe set to 1. Preset to high performance because you're just doing a high quality local recording. Profile, again, baseline. Level, you should be able to leave it at auto, but again, you should just set it to 5.1, makes it simpler. Turn off 2-pass encoding because you shouldn't need it at all. Select the GPU using, of course, using something other than the default one at 0. And B frames you need to set to 0 as well. Now the reason you got to change it here, and not the others as well, the others, QuickSync doesn't give you the option, and AMD's VCE automatic is set to 0. In general, it's usually controlled from the profile at high. Usually that means 2, baseline means 0. It's what makes it easier for the actual editing up for the high quality version. So you set the B frames to 0 here, and it makes it easier for the general video editors instead of having to put more processing power into it than should be needed. So that also covers the high quality recording for the Nvidia base graphics with the NVENC on OBS. For local recording also, we're going to move over towards the advanced tab. The reason for this is the color format. NV12, it's perfect for streaming, doesn't take a lot of processing power, and it's what the generic is used. Now it comes with a bunch of issues in itself. Main issue is that the generic color format, which for most games and such is I420 for the U of color space 709 partial, is NV12 will have the chroma and the luma, the chroma and the luminance in the picture to basically, again, make it easier to go through. That's why it leaves you with a warning down here if you change it off NV12. So if you're going to be streaming it, incur some more processing power on it to do it. And honestly, there's not much processing power extra that it puts into it. So if you're going to be, say, streaming and a local recording, I'd recommend doing I420 if you don't have any problems with it. If you have to, drop it to NV12. But as I've shown before with NV12, I believe, in an Evolve video I did, you can see, at least in games with high quality visuals or a lot going on the screen, that could actually make it look pretty ugly. So I420 is what I would have this set up if you're doing also local recording. So this should cover how to get the hardware encoding set up and whatnot. Now I'm going to be moving over towards the audio. And no, I'm not going to the audio tab. I'm going to go back to output, and I mean the audio tab under output. For streaming, as you see here, I have it set to audio track 1. So you can set it to whatever bitrate they say max is. 160 is usually the middle ground, 192 being the high ground, and such. If you took note when I was under the recording tab, you'll see I have 2, 3, and 4 selected. Now, not everything will recognize multiple audio tracks, obviously, that's how it goes, but there are some programs like DaVinci Resolve which do. So I'm going to hit OK here, go over to Edit, and Advanced Audio Properties. Audio Input Capture, as you can probably see down here, is my mic, and then there's desktop audio. Obviously, it's whatever is playing on the desktop in the background. Now, you'll see for the first two have both the mic and the desktop audio set to record. So this will have, of course, the mic and the desktop audio both together, and that's how it works, and this is usually what you see on stream. Now, since for local recording I have 3 and 4, number 3 is the mic only, and number 4 is desktop audio only. So if you're doing a high quality recording and you only want to, well, if you're doing a high quality recording while streaming and you want to have this high quality video later to edit up, you can actually put it on there without any of the mic, you talking into the mic, babbling, things like that. So it would be great for like B-roll footage and whatnot for whatever you edit up. Like I stated, DaVinci Resolve does this. I don't know if Adobe Premiere does it. I would assume so. I don't use it. I use free stuff. So I can't comment on that. But this is how you can set it up for high quality video with audio tracks and things that can all work together. And this should conclude this video. I mean, there's nothing else really to go over and cover I can think of off the top of my head. So like the video if you liked it, dislike it if you didn't, leave a comment below if you have any questions on OBS or any suggestions for future videos. If you're already subscribed to the channel, thank you for the support, and if you're new here and you liked what you saw here, please click that subscribe button. And as always, I hope you come back for more.
Get ready for a shot!
This will protect us.
Move back! I saw that. Double. Get back.
Rendezvous at my position.
Back into the fray. Clearing the air.